Sales is just about learning how to be human again, like a normal human being. Oh my God, what's that? Oh, I should get that. Realistically, you're trying to bridge the gap from where they are to where they want to be. I did over 5,000 talks. Everyone needs a consistent sales process. I got up, I showered, I put the stupid suit and tie on, I drove to the meeting, I spoke. I did it again. The next day, I did it again. I would get some sales, I would get no sales, but
Stephen Hilgart is a marketing consultant who's helped over 100 founders scale with simple, psychology-driven strategies that actually work. He runs The Path, a program that helps founders 3 times their revenue in under 4 months.
everyone's trying to automate their marketing and do the service. I truly believe that you have to automate the service and do the marketing. Sometimes the easiest way to sell a horse is just to run an ad that says horse for sale, right?
I'm curious here. I want to get to the Tony piece of it because that's fascinating. But before Tony, even, it sounds like you had at least 3 businesses that you had started. And I'm assuming, I don't know if those made it to exit where they're at, but could you tell us a little bit about the background and how you got into these? Because they're different businesses. A lot of people are like, find one thing, but you're like, here's 3 different things.
Yeah. Yeah, and all the exits were great. I made tens of dollars. It was fantastic. So the movie script version of this is I've been in martial arts since I was a little kid. I had a cousin who was a world champion kickboxer, so I wanted to follow in his footsteps. Growing up on Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers and stuff. That's what I wanted to do with my life. So I started karate about 6 years old. I got pretty good. And as you guys are probably well aware, at this point, there was no UFC. There's no NBA contract or NFL contract for some nerdy karate kid. There's only 2 options, right? You get pretty good. I started getting pretty good. I was winning all over the place. I was traveling internationally. And you either open up a karate school of your own or you become a movie star. And you guys can take a wild guess what I wanted to do. So I wanted to go be the next Jackie Chan or whatever. Yeah. I moved down to Chicago where the rest of my team was training. And I had signed all these goofy contracts, History Channel, Discovery Channel, ESPN, Midway Games. We did some motion capture like Mortal Kombat and stuff like that. It all sounds really cool and impressive until you find out I was young and dumb and signed a bunch of things that said they can use everything that I gave them without giving me any money. And, here I am, 18 years old. I'm paying my dues. I'm trying to figure this out. Well, very quickly, the reality sets in. I moved to a strange city with no friends, family, money, savings, job. And I ended up living either on the floor of the karate school I was training at or sleeping in the back of my car. Wow. And I did that for about 2 years. And after about a year and a half, I started to realize that, maybe this isn't exactly how it was supposed to turn out. I'm a bit of a slow learner. I think you guys already get that about me. But, I get super depressed. I'm super frustrated, upset, angry at the world, angry at myself. Couldn't go back home a failure. Couldn't go face my father as a failure. So I'm walking around the Barnes & Noble in Naperville, Illinois. And it's February in Chicago, 30 below zero. So I'm just walking through the bookstore to stay warm. It wasn't like I was trying to read anything because who does that? Read books. But I saw a little book on the shelf, Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. And It was $20. And that was the last I had in my pocket that night was $20. And call it the universe talking to me, divine intervention, whatever the hell you want to call it. I bought that book. Probably would have been a better story if I stole the book, but I spent the last night because, I didn't eat for the next 2 weeks. I was going to the dollar menu every day, but I read that book and it transformed my life. And that set me on a trajectory to go back home to Minnesota, where I'm originally from, and open up a karate school. I was lucky enough to become one of the largest in the country, one of 4 largest at that point. So we did extremely well, sold that, moved to China because why the hell not? And I started traveling from there because that was a big dream to go travel and see the world. So
it wasn't chasing the Jackie Chan thing and trying to get.
Well, yes, of course. But I had a buddy who was teaching English over there. So I said, I'll come over there. So I sold that business, started traveling, did about 65 countries, lived in about 7 of them. And then a buddy of mine, he had just sold his business and lost his mind at the same time that I'd sold my business, lost my mind. And we ended up building a business together where we did, this jump is amazing, right? From karate school to offshore asset protection and corporate services.
Wow.
Yeah. You can see the connection, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the excitement.
Another story. It always sounds really cool, like James Bond and Jason Bourne and stuff like that. Second passports and offshore bank accounts.
Yeah.
And it was all just doctors who wanted to retire to Costa Rica. They're just, I need a bank account to pay my rent down here and I need a condo. Can you help me find a condo? So
what led to that though?
Again, super long story. we were going to start a personal development academy because I was such a huge fan of Tony Robbins. This is long before I met him. And we had this seminar all set up. We had a bunch of speakers. We had Jenna Jameson was going to be one of our speakers lined up, and we just couldn't get it to work. Everyone was prima donnas. The hotel was a pain. And just overnight, he had started like a little newsletter about asset protection after he sold his business. He's like, here's what I'm learning about how to, decrease your taxes and change things around. And he's like, what if we just stop personal development and did this instead? Because I've got a free place we can do it at. We've got a bunch of people on this list. We can just start doing it. And that business did extremely well. But as you can imagine, just judging by my personality, the doom and gloom was too much for me to handle. Because every day I'm writing the sales copy and the marketing and the advertisements. The dollar is going to crash. Gold is your only chance. And you're all going to die. And the government's out to get you. And, it's probably all true. But at the same time, I can only focus on it so much.
Right.
If you like what you're seeing and you want to see more, be sure to click on the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click on the bell. It lets YouTube know you want to support the This Is the Way podcast, and it helps spread the word, and we greatly appreciate it. And now, back to the episode.
Most people turn off the news so they don't have to hear that, but you literally had to write the
news. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So anyways, long story short, I got real burnt out of that, and I just went into marketing, and because that was kind of the skill set that I developed through the karate school and through building this. We did seminars and stuff through filling up those seminars and selling international investments and all of that. I did pretty good. I did a couple launches for a big company called Agora. If you guys know who they are, they do financial newsletters. They do almost $2 billion a year. So anyways, I did pretty well with that. And I was consulting, and probably the best thing and the worst thing that happened to me right out of the gate was I had doubled and tripled a few businesses, just like one after another. Wow. Which got me really excited and cool. Like, man, I'm really good at this. So I fired all my clients and took on three technically, that were all just pay for performance, which just sounds really cool because I wanted to be one of my heroes, Jay Abraham, who's a big marketing guy. Yep. And so I got to meet Jay and get studied with him for over a year. And that was really cool. But so I'm like, I'm going to be like Jay. I'll charge 10% of the upside. This is going to be great. Made them millions of dollars. And when it came time to pay me, they didn't.
Oh, no.
So I was chasing almost $900,000 just every day. The job stopped being marketing and started to become bill collecting. And so I'm living in Eastern Europe at this point, living in Latvia, just chasing money all day long, very unhappy with what I'm going to do. My visa was up. I had to come back to the US. So I was like, what do I do next? Where do I go? And I had met Tony Robbins' doctor. And he said, hey, I want to introduce you. I've been to your events. I know that you got the energy. This would be really good for you. They're looking for a speaker. Why don't you come in and do that? And that's kind of how I got my introduction.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. Who would have thought? The doctor. Yeah.
Wacky, long, winding story, as we all experience, right?
Sure. Incredible. So then at that point, how did it come to the situation where you're like, well, let's do this. I'm on your team now. Like, how did that look?
It was again, the movie script version. It always sounds a little different than reality, right?
Yeah.
For me, when I first got in, they hated my guts. The manager of that division just did not like me for whatever reason, didn't like my personality, didn't like who I was. I was the only speaker who had come in or tried to be a speaker at the beginning who had actually owned my own businesses and sold them and done all that. Everyone else was this is just another job for them. I'm like, no, Tony Robbins changed my freaking life. I'm going to go change lives. I'm here to tear this thing open. Anyways, hated my guts. So I started in the cold calling division. So I was cold calling, booking meetings, speaking gigs for the guy who was hired in my place. So after 6 months of interviewing and doing all these auditions and everything, they're like, nah, we don't want you. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's 6 months I've been at this. Like, there's nobody better than me. I've got this. So that kind of rolled into, there's a gentleman named Brooke Bishop, who's an amazing, incredible coach. Probably one of the most brilliant coaches of our generation. You just don't know his name because he's kind of introverted. But Brooke was the one that hired me. And he kind of taught me the ropes. And I became number one in his division. I came number one multiple times. And then I was a little sneaky with this because I paired up with a speaker that they were like, well, if you want to be a speaker, they kept telling me, no, no, no. I was paired up with one of the top dogs who would come back and I was going to book all his meetings. Well, it turns out he's pretty lazy. I love the guy, super lazy. He didn't want to drive more than 30 minutes. So take a wild guess where I booked all of his meetings. At least 30 minutes away. And I'm like, hey, buddy, don't worry. I'll go run the meeting. I know the script. I know everything. I'll just go do it. And at the end of this, we would do cycles, 3, 4, 5 month cycles where they'd throw us in a city and just go sell out the tickets for this event. Come to end of the cycle, I'd sold over half of his tickets for him. I'm like, you can keep all of them. And they were like, at that point, they had to give me a shot.
Right.
And it was still a bumpy road from there. But over the course of about 8 years, I eventually did become number one again and again and again and again. And there was some really talented people who would come in and they'd be number one in this cycle, or I'd be number one in that cycle, and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the whole story. A little bit weirder than you probably thought.
And with that, no, that's I mean, that's fascinating. As you said, it's like there's always the weird, the truth to what it is, and then the highly abbreviated version
all the twists and turns.
Yes.
You just said something there, and I'm just curious because I there's a pattern here I'm seeing, as you do dive in and take charge in these things. But you mentioned that you were like the top, person when it came to, I assume, was that a sales role? Was that, what kind of a role was
100%. And this is something that most people don't understand. Tony is a sales guy. He always was, always has been, always will be. And that's the one thing that he respects more than anything else. And this is at the beginning of my kind of career with him, learning how to speak and learning how to say, he says, at the end of the day, he uses lots of cuss words, of course. And he would say, I don't effing care if you're the best. Because he saw me speak one time. And because otherwise, if we were in the same town, I wasn't doing my job. Like, it's like high five at the backstage of UPW, and then I'm off to the next city and I'm on. If we're in the same city, I'm not doing a good job. So I got to be in LA when he's in California or Florida or whatever, right?
Yeah.
He saw a recording of me speak one time, and he was there, and he said, you're a really amazing speaker. But he kind of said it in like this way that it's like, it was kind of an insult. And I'm like,
but
like, what was it? And he was like, I don't want everyone to stand up and clap for you at the end. If they clap for you, you're wasting all of our effing time. You're wasting my effing time, and you will never be effing good at this.
Interesting.
He was like, your job is to get them to take action. And if you can get them in front of me at UPW, you know that they've taken the step to transform their life. Because what ends up happening is some guy comes to buy to their office, their real estate company, their mortgage company, their insurance company, their title company, their big conference, big convention. They stand up and they clap and they go back and live the same effing life that they came in with. And you did not. I didn't change. He said, I didn't hire you to be this way. I hired you to change effing lives.
Huh.
And so for him, and I adopted this mentality too after a while, like I really got it, because it wasn't about, and for him too, he's an interesting character, because it didn't matter if they bought a Tony Robbins ticket at the end of the workshop. It mattered that they did something. And he didn't care. He was like, listen, I don't care if they buy a ticket or not. What I care about is that they take out the credit card, they commit to some sort of goal that they have. If that means they sign up for the gym by the time you're done speaking, that's what I want. I don't care what it is. The guy has 300 companies, $9 billion a year. What's a Tony Robbins ticket to him? He doesn't give a damn,
Yeah, but that's still pretty amazing that it's the idea still of transformation, to this degree, like taking action. So.
That was it. And it's everything that he teaches is take action. When you're in the moment of a decision, you have to do something towards achieving that goal. Otherwise, we just go back to living our lives.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the one that instilled, not him directly, obviously, his content, instilled the idea of massive action in me. And every time I'm in a situation where I feel like I need to do something, I just hear Tony in my head saying, take massive action. It gets me going. It's a trigger.
So Steven, I'm curious though, because it sounds like, based on that feedback, if we want to call it, that it was, that then meant that you had to adjust and technically up your sales game, even though your sales wasn't bad, but to that point, it was almost, you were moving people, but not necessarily moving them. direction. So what did you do? How did you tweak that? What did you
I
change?
was definitely middle of the pack when I first started speaking, and I didn't have any support. I was out on my own. I mean, and really that entire company was designed trial by fire, right? So they would set you in a city just randomly. We would, hey, we got to promote the Los Angeles event. So everyone just pick a city in in California, and you're going there for the next 2-3 months and sell as many tickets as you can, talk to as many people as you can, just make it happen before I get there. And so what was interesting, it was like starting a business over every couple of months, because now I'm in a random city and I don't know anybody. And I was doing everything I could, door knocking and talking to people, booking my own meetings and running around. And, it's so awkward to be like, I'm, knock on the door of a Coldwell Banker office and just to insult these guys because I'm here and it's fun. Coldwell Bankers where real estate agents go to die. So I'm going to go knock on the door and I'm like, hey, I'm the top Tony Robbins speaker. You know what Tony Robbins is? I'm going to come in and change your life. And they're like, okay, kid, why are you in New Haven, Connecticut? Like, well, I'm here to change lives. I don't care. So to answer your question, what I did have to get really good at was influence more than anything else. And Tony calls it leadership. Leadership is influence. And the first person you got to learn how to influence is who? Yourself, right? And for me to be able to get my ass up, shower, shave, put the suit and tie on, go out there and be excited for number 5 that day, because at one point I was speaking 3, 4, 5 times per day, and I was sleeping a couple hours a night. I was on the road for 8 years for 365 days out of the year. And a lot of people are like, I want to do what you do. I'm like, no, you don't.
Right? Good. The Hollywood version again.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And they just saw me speak. I want to be like you. And I'm like, no, you need to hit the sales. You need to change lives. You need to make this happen. And to actually make an impact on the world, influence was a big game. So I had to learn how to sell from the front of the room.
Interesting. And then did you learn that through, ironically, I know Tony Robbins has an influence program, but how did you actually do that? Was it just the more practice you put in, the better you got, small tweaks, or did you turn to something specific?
Yeah. So there was a couple of speakers that came before me that were really good at it. There's a gentleman named Eli Wilhide. Eli Wild is what he goes by online. He still teaches, coaches sales. He was by far the number one Tony salesman probably of all time. He did coach me when I came in, and he kind of saw how I was treated a little bit, and he took a little pity on me. And he was like, all right, let me show you some of these ropes. And one thing that was really fascinating was what he would teach me is identity selling, because realistically, you're trying to bridge the gap from where they are to where they want to be. And a lot of that has to do with who would you have to be in order to make the decisions to become that person. So someone who's in great shape, they're not in great shape because one day they go to the gym one time. It's because of their consistent habitual patterns and habits and things that they do every single day. It's the micro decisions that they make in that moment. Mm-hmm. So things that we would often do, and it might even sound a little manipulative at points, but it really wasn't about manipulation. It was about how do you get their best self to show up in that moment? Because you guys have experienced Unleash Power Within. You're dancing, you're yelling, you're screaming, you just storm through fire. You make very dramatic, different decisions right after you storm through fire than if you're sitting there at your, at your desk in your cubicle and like you just got yelled at by your boss once again and rent's due and everything. You make dramatically different decisions. So the idea of identity selling is like, who are you when you're at your best, and what decision would they make?
Interesting. That is pretty powerful when you think about it.
I really like that.
And is it safe to say then that's probably that alone? Is that a core piece of what you've taken as you've helped others afterwards, that they make that mistake in their business? Or would you say that was more to your own particular situation?
It's hard to give it any one thing. It's always, it's never one big thing, right? It's always stacked reasons. Mm-hmm. So one strategy stacked on top of another thing, stacked on top of another thing. And for me, I'm so goofy. I would use a lot of humor and break up the tension and stuff like this. But what I had to learn was how to bridge that gap between me and another person. And at the beginning, I thought, like many speakers think, they're going to get on stage and they're going to tell their story about how hard it was for them and how difficult it was and what they overcame. And because I overcame this, you can overcome this too. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. Yeah. That has never moved anybody ever anywhere. And we're all lying to ourselves if we think that's the case. So I thought I was going to be like my buddy Eli. And Eli, it's funny. I brought him up now a couple times, but he was cast to be Superman. So really handsome character, really good looking guy, really charismatic, and all the ladies would swoon. And I'm like, you know what? I could be like Eli. I could just stand here and be the most charismatic, best looking guy in the room, and everyone's going to throw their credit cards and panties at me. And little did I learn, or little did I know, that it's just not the case whatsoever. It had nothing to do with what I looked, had everything to do with who I was when I showed up in that moment. The idea, once again, was to go back to this. There's always a gap between me. Here's, I'm pushing 40 now, but here I was, late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s. And I'm trying to connect with the 60-year-old, twice divorced woman with 3 kids and that. There's not many ways that I can bridge that gap. So I had to learn really how to influence this person. What is she concerned about? What is she worried about? What does she wake up thinking? And what are her fears and worries and frustrations and turnoffs? So in the marketing world, we call this joining the conversation that's already happening inside of their head. And when you can articulate their problem better than they can in their own mind, they feel heard, they feel understood, and they really get it.
Interesting. Which
is that, I see this happen, and I see bad versions of it and good versions of it, where
mostly bad, I'm sure.
Yeah, the good people are really good with it. They just instinctively know how to put themselves in the other person's shoes.
Yes.
Would you say that it just comes easy for you to be able to put yourself in the other person's shoes? And
not
say,
originally.
So it's a skill that you develop as a trial and error and repetition.
I've said this probably a million times, and people still don't believe me. They think I'm just full of shit, right? I wasn't born with any talent whatsoever. I suck at everything. Like, I was always the most awkward. I'm 6'1" now, but in school as a fighter, I was the smallest, I was the weakest, I was the skinniest, I was the least talented, I was the least flexible. Like, I sucked at everything you can possibly imagine. For me, it was always skill. But what I learned is that skill will always outpace talent. And for me, there's an old Will Smith quote. He was the original one. We both get on a treadmill next to each other, and either you're going to get off first or I'm going to die. And that's exactly how I've treated most of my life. And with those skill sets, I had to just practice and sit there and practice and practice and practice and practice. And, luckily for me, I when I first started, they didn't want to give me the good opportunities. They didn't want to put me in Los Angeles. They wanted me to go to Modesto. They wanted me to go out in the middle of nowhere. Hey, we're going to go to New York City. You go up to Connecticut because we don't like it. So I had to go into rooms where they didn't want me there. They hated my guts. They had no idea who Tim Robertson was anyways. I would be at a used car lot on a Saturday morning at 7 a.m. talking to 3 guys, drinking a Monster and smoking a cigarette. And I'm like, and so I really had to learn how to move some of these people who were just impossible to move. So it was skill. I'm not saying that from an ego place. I did over 5,000 talks for Tony.
Well, and I think that, I think you put in the reps, but it also sounds like you probably started seeing, I don't want to call them caricatures, but you started seeing certain types of people who were these, and that probably helped you also connect because then you understood it after going through so many, different ones.
It's really weird. And I started to notice, and we call them patterns, right? But I started to notice traveling the world is that people are just people. Everyone's got the same issue. It doesn't matter what race, sex, religion, country, nationality. People are just people at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And they're all just most of them are just trying to get through the day.
And most of them just want significance, as we all learned too. Yeah.
Certainty and significance. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. They want something more, but they don't know what that is. It hasn't been articulated well enough. Like Tony is so good at saying, you're really after growth because this is the thing that matters. And at the end of the day, what does anything do? It grows so it can contribute. And that hits people hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just as you say that too. And again, some of the terms and stuff and things that you speak to, it's like, oh yeah, I'll admit some of it's like that refresher. Cause some of the things, as we've read this stuff or been there too, it's like, I could see what you've embodied. Now I'm curious then, because we took you as far as, Robbins, but then after that, what was the point where you're like, okay, now it's time for me to go on my own adventures again? What did that look like? And where are you at today?
It was interesting because when I first joined, I was like, you know what? I'm paying my dues back. It wasn't really like, I want to be the best Tony Robbins speaker. It was like, I owe this man my life. I owe him my family. I owe him my, like, everything in my life. I'm going to do what he's always asked, is change more lives. So what's the best way I know how to do that? All right, let me go work for him. Let me go, sell Tony Robbins tickets. But I mean, out of the thousands and thousands and thousands of people I got to that event, every single person, giant hugs, tears in their eyes. They still call me. They still text me. They still message me. Oh my God, you changed my life because you got me there. You forced me to go to this stupid event and it changed my life. So that was huge. I said I was going to give them 10 years. And for whatever reason, that was just the number, the rectal extraction method. But I pulled that out. I said, I'm going to give them 10 years. Well, come along, March of 2020, we were on fire. It was me and a couple other people who were just like probably some of the best speakers that have ever come through. Because there's only ever 4 or 5 of us at a time. Because people get burnt out so fast, so easy. There was only one other guy who lasted longer than me. And I lasted 8 years. He lasted, I think, 10. Maybe it was quite 11. But yeah, so we were on fire. We had sold out San Jose. We were selling out Chicago. We were just about to move to Dallas. We had sold out these events ahead of time. And then, of course, COVID happens. Boom, overnight. We've got 30,000 stadium tickets that we need to refund. Wow. We've got nowhere to go. We're locked. I was in a hotel in Chicago, and it was one of those 1,000-person Marriotts or whatever. And I think there was 18 of us total in the entire hotel. It was like The Shining. It was weird. They turned all the lights off. They let everyone go home. It was me and
a girl came down the hallway on her tricycle.
It was weird. It was so creepy because I'm on like the 20th floor and nobody else is on this floor. Wow. It was me and an airline crew, and we're all just kind of stuck there. We didn't know what to do.
That's crazy.
I ended up coming to Arizona with one of my partners here. He was like, "Hey, just come stay with us for 2 weeks. It'll be great." And I never left. Right. But in that moment, I saw it clear as day. It was like this role of me being on the road and the rest of us speakers, it's done. This is never going to exist ever again. And I know a lot about internet marketing. So how about I stay on and let me build out this webinar model with you guys and show you how to run this and show you how to do this. And I did. And for almost 2 years, I stuck it out and kind of helped them build the webinars up. And, Tony, you saw the virtual studios and all that stuff. It was great. And then at the end of that, it's like, as I build this, I'm putting myself out of a job. There's no reason for me to be here anymore. And what was really funny was even before this had happened, I saw Tony backstage, one of those UPWs. Hey, high five. Great job. #1 sales. So proud of you. Cool. And that's what I expected. And he turned to me and the other guy who was there for a long time. He's like, "What are you guys still doing here?" What do you mean, Tony? We're changing lives. He's like, "You're supposed to go learn this stuff and go do it on your own. Like, why are you still here?" There wasn't a role for us after that. It wasn't like we were going to become the next Tony Robbins. There was nothing like that for us. Yeah. So we had to go off and figure out our own path. And that's what we all did. No. So I went back into consulting to pay the bills and again, really successful right out of the gates. And that business is changing a little bit these days with AI and artificial intelligence, like all this stuff that's happening in this world. So here I am today.
Yeah. Incredible. So then today you have, it sounds like you do some fractional work, but then you also have the path. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I've got a book. I'm just about to launch my book and you're going to love the title. Yeah. Thank you very much. I worked my ass off on it. It's called The Book on Marketing. Ooh. So now for the rest of my life, anybody says anything about marketing, I say, well, I did write the book on marketing. So
actually, is there not a book with the title?
No,
the book on marketing? That's amazing.
Suckers.
Yeah, right. Way to go.
I couldn't get the domain, so I had to get abookonmarketing.com. Yeah. That's the domain, and that'll be done in the next couple of days.
And now we get to say that we know the guy who wrote
the book on marketing. So you guys are ipso facto experts just because, well, I know the guy who wrote the book on marketing. So obviously I'm a jokester, but I like to have a little fun with this. If you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong. So to answer the question, the Path is a little coaching program that I created when I was with Tony. I had started that little thing. And the idea was that if you're under $1 million, you're trying to get to $1 million, I'm going to help you with the strategy, the marketing, and the mindset. And we're just going to, every week, we're going to do coaching, that sort of stuff. And again, some of the best and worst things that have happened to me is that when I'm really successful right out of the gate, it makes things, you lose out on all the lessons that when you fail and fail and fail and try to do this. So I've had to revamp it a couple of times, but the original I had 72 people in there originally at launch. Out of the 36 who stayed and stuck with me for a year, every single one of them, 100% of them doubled, tripled, quadrupled, even 10x their business.
Amazing.
In less than a year.
That's awesome.
So yeah. So that's still going on right now.
That's pretty wild. I mean, that's unheard of in a lot of these. Even that number sticking around is obviously
half of them even put up with me for a year. Like, are you kidding? Like that?
Right?
That's pretty good.
But
incredible. They had all my bad jokes.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's great. And then you ran out of jokes and they left.
That was it. It was just game over. They were like, we've heard this joke before.
So what does that look like? What are you actually doing that helps them through that transformation?
This is probably only going to make sense to a bunch of other marketing nerds, and maybe even consultants too. You guys probably will get this hands down, but I think a lot of consultants and strategists, they try to be the smartest guy or gal in the room, and they try to say things and come up with unique strategies and really complicated things to feed that significance, if you will, to feed that ego of like, I'm the smartest, I've figured this out, I know the strategy, I know the tools. The more mature I've gotten, which still clearly I'm not very mature as I've gotten older, we'll say that.
Exactly.
Wiser.
I've learned that there's just these small hinges that swing big doors. And there's so many things that, so I have the path for under $1 million, over $1 million. People are trying to scale. I do fractional chief marketing officer work, right?
Okay.
So like someone who doesn't have the money to hire a full-time $250K plus bonuses, salary, benefits, all this stuff, hey, I'll do it for a little bit less. And usually we do these 90-day sprints. In those 90-day sprints, like my guarantee is like, I'm going to dramatically increase your revenue. Everyone's like, well, how can you even do that? It's literally 3 things. One, the first question is, what's working really well for you right now? This thing. Cool. I think we should do more of that. That's a great idea. Cool. What's not working for you? Oh, it's this thing. I don't think we should do that anymore. Oh, okay. That's really smart. And number 3, the best one is, what's the thing that you did really, really well in the past that worked really, really well that you're not doing anymore? And you should be. And everyone's got one of those. Every single business owner on the planet, no matter how smart you are, no matter how talented you are, I have stories upon stories where it's like, oh, clearly it's this thing. This is the best thing that ever worked for us. Are you still doing it? No. Do you think you should? Yeah, that's a good idea. And just, it's an immediate boost in revenue. Immediately.
Yeah.
And I've got silly stories for all 3 of those. But, I had a guy just a couple months ago. He was running $3 million a year in television ads. And I asked him, I was like, TV, like really, like actually like local television? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, that's a lot of money, man. Is it working? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. How many calls did you get last year from it? Well, I don't know, but a lot. No, just like really, let's do the numbers. How many? Long story short, 0.
Wow.
And how did we know? Because there was one phone number attached to that commercial. There wasn't a single phone call that came from that commercial for an entire year. And he spent $3 million. I'm like, hey, how about you just give me a percentage of that $3 million and we'll call it good.
Now you make it $3 million. Yeah, that's crazy.
There's a cost saving.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But it is interesting, I think, because with that, it's so easy. I think business owners, humans in general, do something for this period of time and get so caught up in it that sometimes don't pause for those questions. And sometimes even if somebody just said, hey, it's different still until they're ready, at which point they engage somebody and they're also like, help me now figure out how to do this better. Now they're receptive to it in this way that it might have been before. Right. Is that for you? Do you find that the types of customers that you're engaging, I assume if they're signing up for the path as a gateway, and then like you said, they might, do they graduate from the path, or do some of them come straight in for your program?
It's funny to me because it's a dramatically different avatar, right?
Okay.
It's a dramatically different business owner. Someone who's just trying to get to $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Like these days, it's not that difficult to scale up to $1 million even by yourself with the amount of tools and marketing and automations that are available these days. Yeah. And especially as artificial intelligence really starts to come into the play, I wouldn't be surprised if most businesses are $1 million with 1 person, 2 people, a VA, something along those lines. Of course, there's a lot of local companies like the HVAC company and the plumbing company and stuff like that. Those don't take very much to get to $1 million in revenue, right? Mm-hmm. Now, are they keeping $1 million? Of course not. But to get to $1 million revenue, that's not that difficult. But the people who, I normally charge between $20,000 and $30,000 per month for fractional CMO stuff. So the companies who can afford to do that, they're already looking to hire a CMO, but they're scared of a couple things. Number one, of like a bad hire. I'm sure you guys have heard this too. And funny enough, I think I got this statistic from Disney. I think they were the ones who originally did this study, that a bad hire costs 11 times their annual salary.
It is crazy, right? Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe you guys correct me, but I thought that's where that came from.
No, I don't know. We'll say sure.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I wouldn't doubt it is a pretty incredible thing. When I was after Disney was at Netflix, and they really reinforced the idea there of, like, take your time to hire, but fire fast. Like, if you know that they're not the right one, do it, because that's also where there's that impact, is where people sit with that hire for the longest time. But so, yeah, I see fractional lets them figure out working with you, but you don't ever go full time with anybody, right? Or have you?
No, I like to do 90-day contracts because, for me, I end up becoming friends with a lot of these people. And it starts to get really weird after like 90 days of like, I'm going to charge you a lot more money when you could just call me, And at that point I and plus it feeds my ADD too, right? I get to move on to the next project, the next challenge, the next thing that I'm always trying to revamp or rechange or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's always exciting for me to go into a new business. At this point it's been thousands and with the Tony gig, and then even my own consulting, a few hundred businesses. But so it's a little bit different.
Do you find yourself attracting a certain type of industry or business, or is it varied?
Yes and no. Because of all my work in the service industry, like there's so many, when I say service industry, I mean professional services, real estate, title, mortgage, insurance, I had a martial arts school. So I'm selling coaching, I'm selling, services, agency owners and stuff. So I end up getting a lot of those people, especially in the path, who are just trying to scale up to $1 million. Probably the fastest, easiest way to get to $1 million is to sell some kind of a service, right? Mm-hmm. E-commerce is really difficult, especially as of today in the last couple of days. We'll see how my friends do in e-com, but to be profitable, someone who's just getting started, they can sell web design services and make $10, $20, $30, $40,000 a month fairly easily,
And with that, what would you say then for those individuals, like, is the unlock? Because a lot of people will say that, and ultimately when it comes down to it, sometimes the service and identifying what you're going to do is actually, maybe I'm underexpressing this by saying it's the easy part, but it is the marketing that becomes so darn hard. So like, if you have somebody who's, and I don't know if already when they join you, they're probably a little bit further along, but say somebody's come in, they're like, I've only been generating, $2,000 a month. Like, what is it at that point? Because I know there's those set of questions that you said, but at that point, they might not have done enough to really understand.
We don't know what's working. Help.
Yeah. So I'm just curious if there's other things that you see that are quick unlocks or that are big mistakes that people are making out of the gate that slows them down.
Yeah. So in the service side, there's the big mistake is that they spend 100% of their time on lead gen or 100% of their time on service.
Okay.
So like they get the leads and then they do all the work and avoid the hard work of the lead gen, right? Mm-hmm. And so they get done with the project and then they've got to start all over because they've got no business. Okay. They weren't planting the seeds as they were doing the work. Yeah. So they'll finish a website, they'll finish a contract, they'll get that insurance deal, whatever it ends up being, they'll sell the house, they'll close on the mortgage, whatever. And now they got to scramble to go find the next client because they weren't lead genning throughout that entire time, right?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what it really is. And this took me years to figure out. I was doing it. I just didn't know I was doing it. And everyone needs a consistent sales process. So I can give you multiple examples. In the Tony world, it was simple. I got up, I showered, I shaved, I put the stupid suit and tie on, I drove to the meeting, I spoke. And at the end of my talk, I would ask people to buy and I would ask them for referrals. Mm-hmm. Whether or not I got anything out of that meeting, I drove to the next meeting. I did it again. The next day, I did it again. I did it again. I did it again. No matter how well I performed or how poorly I performed, no matter if I was sick or tired or exhausted or hadn't slept in a week, I would get some sales. I would get no sales, but there was a consistent sales process. And eventually I had my partner. She was Billy Crane. She was amazing. She would call and book meetings ahead. Hey, I'm going to be in this city. She would book a couple of meetings. I would go do those meetings. I'd give her referrals. She'd go book more meetings. So there was a consistent sales process. For the karate school, we had my big hook was the 1 month special. $14.95, you get a free month of karate and a free uniform. Like, okay, cool. So I would put that offer everywhere I could. I would teach the gym classes at all the schools. I would go into the community events or whatever. And I would have people come try the free special, come try a free class, get a free uniform, do this thing. And then the process would just take over. Some people would stay, some people would leave. But every single day I'm doing lead gen. As the world continues to change, the one big mistake that I'll say that everyone's going to throw pitchforks at me and torches, everyone's trying to automate their marketing and do the service. And I truly believe that you have to automate the service and do the marketing.
Interesting.
Because you look at LinkedIn as a great example. It's a bunch of AI slop.
Yeah.
And it's just, you look at it, and I joke about this because I use some ghostwriters in the past myself, but you look at it and it's so funny because it's VAs talking to VAs pretending to be other people. And it's all just a circle jerk of VAs talking to each other.
Yeah.
And
or automated VAs.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Chat GPT or whoever.
It doesn't take much to stand out and make friends. I mean, Michael, that was how we started. I said some sarcastic comment on one of your things and we just started chatting. Right. And, it's just typical because it's like, we're just desperate for human interaction.
Right. Yeah. It's a great point. And I think these days too, just using LinkedIn as that example, because you will look at, again, so many comments and be like, robot. It's like, oh, human. Yeah. And then which ones usually climb to the top and that people are engaging with more? It's the human one that you see there. I mean, ironically, I look at somebody we've had on here before. Luke's got this approach where he loves using, GIFs, whatever, all the time because, that's his way of, it shows that I took time to think about what was a good response. Now, again, eventually that will probably be an AI thing too. And then
sure.
If you won't know. But
I had a story. I'm in LA and Waymo, the robo taxis, are now kind of in the West Hollywood and the west side of LA. And there was one Waymo trying to make a right from a small street, and one of those little robot food deliveries was on the sidewalk. So as the Waymo is trying to go, this robot is trying to move forward. And literally, I'm there watching these two robots go take 2 inches forward, 2 inches forward. It took about a minute. Finally, the food delivery went through. And to me, I'm looking at this. I'm
symbolic.
Like, this is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
like this is the robots constantly talking to each other.
Oh man, you needed a picture of
I should have taken a video. That's what I should have done.
Yeah,
because it was hilarious.
I realized too, I was saying Luke Matthews, there's obviously lots of Lukes out there, but I think this is it. And he's somebody who ended up almost angry at LinkedIn because he's like, he even had a course around AI, but now he's like, dang it, what have I even done? Like, what is happening here to it? So I think what you said is actually really interesting. And I do also think that there is something to like the trust, that you get that through the marketing side of it. I mean, granted, then you got to deliver on a product. You at least got to make sure there's something on the other side once they buy it or the service. But I do think that is really interesting. I hadn't heard it put that way before, but I could see that, which means that a lot of these folks here, because if you look at so many people who start companies, businesses, the struggle is actually often in that marketing and that, because sometimes people get excited about building the product. They might build the product and then it sits for a while. I know I've been there myself. And then now it's like, okay, now the thing is, now you actually got to knock on doors, do the other things in whatever ways that's going to do it to get out there to build that. How are you going to, be seen and heard? And I think people would love to almost outsource that piece, but it's so hard to outsource that piece when, again, it's usually built on the idea that people buy from you, not how's that go? People buy the person, not there's a way, and I'm butchering it. I'll figure it out in a minute.
It's whatever it is. It sounds like it's going to be genius.
Yeah. People buy the person, not the product. I mean, it's very common in like startup investing where investors investing in the team, not necessarily the product. I think that's probably what you mean, Michael.
That is it. Yeah. People buy from, the people, not the product is, I think, the way to do it. So
Going back to the sales conversation, one thing I've noticed, and again, this is just kind of a revelation I've had in the last couple of years. And again, I didn't know I was doing this in sales, but at some point, somebody has to teach, like, sales is just about learning how to be human again, like a normal freaking human being. And if you're just talking to your friends and you're like excited about, oh, I get this thing, it's really cool. They're like, oh my God, what's that? Oh, I should get that. Oh, I should sign up for that thing. Yeah, you should, dude. It's so cool. And it's just normal people, but like people have forgotten how to just be normal.
Yeah. I think it's a good point too. And I think at the same time, and this comes down to, the relationship building. It's like, there's that difference between the person you see him all the time who, just pinged you to say, hey, I like that post, but really, where they're going next.
Yeah.
Want to buy my product? Instead of the idea here of, I like the post, like that could be it. That's okay. And then eventually you start engaging, and then eventually the person sees, and I'm simplifying a space where I'm not the expert in, but I do think that there's something to that. And I think this idea here where, because when people do build something, their goal at that point is to get the sale, when you have to think about it first about to build that trust, that relationship, whatever it is that's going to.
The DMs that just get under my skin on LinkedIn is without anything. I saw your profile when we set up a call to discuss. I'm like, what are we talking about here?
Let's hop on a call.
Like, why do you need 30 minutes of my time for no reason?
Do you want a coffee call? No, I got my own coffee. Thanks.
Right?
Yeah, it's nonstop.
Yeah, it is interesting. And it does mean that you got to do a lot more to cut through the noise for it as well. So.
It's so funny because a couple weird points that everyone always asks me, aren't you afraid of speaking to that many people and speaking in front of thousands of people, whatever? I'm like, no, it's just a conversation. I'm just talking to people. Like, it's just normal. And as you get better at speaking, it becomes like one-on-one, but just like one-on-one with a lot of people in the room. And you're just talking. And it's like, how do we unlearn all those weird, awkward things of like, just like that, Art, because somebody messaged you because someone told them, like, I don't know what to say. I'm terrified to reach out to this guy. What do I say? And like, I liked your profile. Do you like me back? Check yes. If like, it's like, that's not a normal human being. Like, you're just being awkward.
Yeah. No, it's so true. I had another question I wanted to make sure I got in here with you around offers in general. And I think you've touched on a couple of things here that provided, some insight around that. But a lot of people struggle with trying to get the offer right. And depending on how you look at it and, how that relates to product market fit and how we're considering that, like, is there an approach that you recommend for making sure that you can shape that offer in a way that's speaking to your again, ICP?
Yeah. There's a lot of marketing, quote unquote, gurus and business gurus who are just making a fortune teaching people stupid stuff right now.
But you wrote the book.
Yeah, I wrote the book. So just so everyone knows, I'm the one who wrote the book on marketing.
Sorry, yeah.
But I mean, listen, they're trying to be. So you're kind of opening a couple of can of worms here, but ICP number one, I think the big mistake in marketing, people go to school, they get the marketing degree, they read the textbook and it tells them to do this. And they go to work for Accenture or Deloitte or whatever. And here's what I'm supposed to say. And here's what I'm supposed to say. It's all a bunch of bullshit. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. The biggest thing for them is if a customer has a problem, that is the customer demographic. And that is, again, no matter their race, sex, religion, where they grew up, if they've got termites in their house, termites are not prejudice, right? They don't care what color your skin is. You got termites. Right. So for someone to go back and say, my customer avatar is John, he's 42 years old, white man living in suburban Chicago, is like, it's all just bullshit. They got 2.5 kids and a white picket fence. The offer comes down to, and this is a Jay Abraham quote way back in the day. Sometimes the easiest way to sell a horse is just to run an ad that says horse for sale. Right? And like, that's the most clear offer you can possibly get. And right now, the big thing in marketing is, how do I make this sound so complex and so convoluted so people pay me thousands of dollars for my course to teach them offer mastery? And at the end of the day, it's like, if they've got a problem, they've got a headache, something hurts, and you say, I have aspirin. This will get rid of your headache. That's a real offer right there.
Yeah.
And most people just, they forget the basics. And right now they're like, oh, you don't have the right definition. You're not branding yourself properly. You need to say, I empower inspirational women for the next entrepreneurial age in order to use AI transformative. It's like, no, what do? Like, most people are so convoluted these days, they can't just say, I'm a personal trainer, because they want that significance. They want to be something special and unique and different. But the problem is they're so special and unique, nobody knows what the hell they're doing.
Right.
Like, and it just comes back down to a simple offer. And the offer is, I like yours, Michael, when you say, hey, listen, I'm a career coach. I can help you increase your income over the next couple of years. You want to do that? Like, it's such a simple offer. Like, yeah, I have a career. I'd like to make more money. Like, cool. This guy is going to show me what to do or what to say.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. And that's interesting hearing that way. Cause admit too, and Arten's been on the other side of this as we go through that thing of like questioning, because everybody has all these frameworks out there. And it is the one where you're like, ambitious, like you just really start to spell it out, where in the end, somebody's like, I want a horse. Like, I love
come on, dude. Like, I don't get
You'll make it harder. Yeah.
Yeah. There's an old book, and I forget who wrote this book, but they went back and they studied all the presidential speeches over the years, especially during the debates, and between, all the way back to like Nixon and Reagan and everyone, and just who won the presidential race at that point. It was always the person who spoke at a lower level language. And like Obama, like Romney and Obama was interesting, because Romney was speaking at like 11th grade level and Obama was speaking at an 8th grade level. 100% of the time it was always who spoke at a lower level. And just more clear language, more clear communication. Trump was speaking at a 4th grade level, so everyone was like, "Oh yeah, that's the one."
Yeah. Well, with that actually, because that's also fascinating. And I have to say, is there for you? Do you go through whenever you're reviewing, any of the marketing materials of like these reminders? Because like sometimes all of this for me, it reminds me of playing golf, which I'm horrible at, because each time it's like, okay, don't bend this, do this, bend over this way, hold this, make sure your fingers are pointing this way, head down, not that far down, and it's like, but at these times, like when you mention even this as the example, it's like that's one of those where like, almost going back and reworking and making sure your stuff is simplified that way. Are there other like key roles when you think about it that you always make sure you go through in your head, or like a checklist?
I really, really thank God for ChatGPT, right? Because it edits my language down. Because I write mountains of stuff, and I got to go back and like, oh no, this is way too much. This is there's what's the old thing, the Kincaid reading level or whatever it's called, or the Hemingway app that allows you to track. And really just trying to keep the language as simple as humanly possible. And not because people are stupid. It's because you're not as clear as you think you are. And this is such a huge mistake, because we look at our marketing, we read our marketing, we're like, I'm a genius. Everyone can figure this out. But the goal is to create a sales message or a marketing message that's so clear, not that it can be understood, but so that it can't be misunderstood.
Interesting.
That's the hard part. And that's the part, like I had a company just recently, they're on the stock exchange, they're struggling. Their stock is falling off a cliff. They're in danger of being delisted, and they wanted me to work on their messaging with them. You can take a wild guess if they're actually doing it or not. And no, they're not. But they have all these companies they've acquired over the last couple of years, and they have no unifying message. There's a great book called Play Bigger. And that book is all about what are you the category king of? If there was one thing that you're the king of, what is it? And for this company in particular, they got software, they got services, they've got insurance, they've got all these other companies rolled into one big conglomerate, and nobody knows what the hell they do. And for us, even as smaller, entrepreneurs, this day I got 2 employees and a VA, I'm a small businessman myself, but most people don't know. That's why I've got the path. If you want to get to $1 million, you got a business, I can help you. I've got fractional CMO work. You're trying to scale up and make tens of millions of dollars, I can help you. But that's it. Like, you don't have a chief marketing officer, you need one, I'll help you out for the next 90 days. You're trying to figure out your business, I got you. Like, and I've worked so hard to try to get those messaging, that messaging so clear. The book on marketing. What's this book about? Well, it's a book on marketing. I mean, it sounds so dumb, but there's so many things. Like, here's how to increase your sales by 8,000% while doing that.
Right. I love it. And even the name, The Path, is great too, because it's just so, simple and straightforward. And with that, for people who want to find you, want to find The Path, how do they do so?
Well, Path is pathmembership.com. You can go to stephenhilgard.com. As soon as I get it, maybe when this is finally out there, it'll be abookonmarketing.com. I wish I got the domain thebookonmarketing, but it'll be there.
Yeah.
So, so I've got those websites up. They can come hang out with me and listen, even if they never buy anything from me, if you just want to hang out and talk and chat, I'm here to help. I'm here to serve.
Yeah. That's great. And if you had to give a piece of advice for, that individual now who's aspiring, trying to get their business off the ground, what sort of advice would you give them?
Besides what we talked about here today of just like that idea of getting your sales system down, make sure that you have something that's repeatable every day, that if you just wake up and do that, you're going to get sales. Yeah. Number two, that idea of we talked about, like, get ahead of the game right now and don't outsource your marketing. You do your marketing and outsource your services or automate your services best you can. Because that's going to be the next revolution, I think, in business for a lot of people. But, God, my favorite quote is actually from Jim Rohn, and this is the big thing that's always hit home for me so much. And I got it pulled up here, but it's from one of his old sermons he would always teach and whatever. If you think it's impossible, it isn't. If you think you know everything, you don't. And if you think you're alone, you're not.
Nice.
And that's the big thing, was as we're all kind of walking our path or climbing the mountain of success or whatever you want to call it. Like, there's so many of us, like you and I and the three of us here, that you might not see us climbing the mountain, but we are. Off in the distance, off in the fog, we're all climbing this thing. You're not alone. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of entrepreneurs need to hear, is that you're not crazy. Everyone else is.
Exactly. That's great. Love it. Well, thank you so very much.
Dude, it's such a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I mean, that was just a great message to end it with. Appreciate meeting you today. And that was great.
And then for anybody else out there who's doubting it, this is what happens if you genuinely just connect with people and try to talk to them on LinkedIn as not a robot.
Just be a normal freaking human being.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks, gentlemen.